Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Okay, we're jumping right into this today because we are unpacking a really profound theological shift. We're looking at a concept that takes the believer's journey from just, merely surviving day to day to formally and legally inheriting absolutely everything that belongs to them. The sources we're analyzing today present a radically different way of viewing salvation. It isn't just about escaping eternal judgment, though obviously that's huge. It's actually about a fundamental change in your legal identity. We're talking about moving all the way from the absolute margins to the very center of the family.
But before we get into the nuts and bolts of how this all works, I want you to really think about a challenging question. Are you living as an orphan inside the Father's house? This is the central conflict of what we're unpacking today. You see, a lot of people fully believe they're part of a spiritual family, yet their day-to-day reality, well, it reflects someone who is totally alone, just constantly fending for themselves. It is entirely possible to be physically inside the house, but completely disconnected from the actual benefits of the household.
To understand why this happens, we need to look at what the source material identifies as the root cause. So let's get into Section 1, the orphan mindset virus.
According to the teachings we're exploring, this mindset is literally the greatest invisible threat paralyzing the contemporary church. And it's super insidious because it operates right beneath the surface. It kind of corrupts your spiritual operating system without you even realizing it's running in the background. Notice how incredibly practical these symptoms are. This virus causes people to live in a constant state of anxiety. We see a lingering fear of abandonment, a really deep-seated fear of rejection, a mentality of scarcity that just screams at you that there will never be enough, and ultimately, total spiritual paralysis. This mindset forces individuals to live as if they have absolutely no support system, completely unaware of their true secure position. They're just exhausted because they feel like they have to earn every single drop of love or provision. The sources actually highlight three distinct identities here. First, you have the son. This is the legitimate heir who freely enjoys the inheritance and just rests in the presence of the father. Then the orphan, the one who technically might belong but lives in total helplessness and lacks a true sense of identity. And finally, the bastard, representing that which is generated entirely outside the bounds of the covenant. So take a second. Which of these best describes your current spiritual reality? It's a pretty challenging self-audit, right? If there is just one key takeaway you remember from this entire explainer, it is absolutely this quote. The gospel does not offer you behavioral reform. Through the cross, it carries out a legal transfer of paternity. Seriously, let that sink in for a second. We are not talking about some self-help program designed to make you act a little bit better. We're talking about the courtroom of heaven. It is a binding legal reality where your very lineage is completely rewritten. It is an absolute change of nature. Let's move right into our next section to see the mechanics of how this works. Section 2. A legal paternity transfer. When we understand salvation purely as forgiveness, we stop terribly short of the full picture. The text we're analyzing argue that deliverance from judgment is really just the prerequisite. The ultimate goal, that's formal inclusion into a brand new family line. So the crucial point here is exactly how we define adoption. Drawing from Galatians chapter 4, adoption in this context is not a metaphor. It is the formal and legal entry into the realm of true sonship. Think about the ancient Roman legal context that the Apostle Paul was writing in. An adopted son held the exact same unshakable legal rights as a biological one. No difference whatsoever. The cross enacts a permanent change of status. You aren't just a pardoned criminal. You are a legally reinstated heir with full rights.
But to acquire this new status, the old one has got to be completely obliterated. So, Section 3, breaking the outsider's status.
You simply cannot be a legal citizen of the kingdom while still carrying the passport of an outsider. It doesn't work. Here is the definitive journey of renewing the mind as mapped out in our sources. Step 1 is the absolute tearing up of the certificate of alienation. The cross literally destroys the documentation that said you didn't belong. Boom, gone. Step 2 is formally entering what the text calls the familia die. And step 3, which naturally follows the first two, is manifesting works of power. But here's the catch. You cannot reach step 3 if you haven't fully internalized step 1, the complete and total destruction of your outsider status. Now, step 2 brings us to this incredibly beautiful concept, familia Dei, the family of God. Based on Ephesians 2:19, this is where the strict, formal courtroom transforms into a warm, inviting living room. You are no longer strangers or foreigners. You're positioned as fellow citizens with the saints. Imagine walking right through the front door of a home and knowing, without a shadow of a doubt, that you belong there.
knowing the refrigerator is yours to open, that the safety of those walls belongs to you. That is the warmth and the absolute security of the Familia Dei.
But as we know, our actions usually reveal our true mindset. Look at this powerful quote from the material. The orphan lives to survive and protect himself. The legitimate child rests in the father's provision and lives to manifest the government of the house. Wow. This is such a stark, revealing contrast, isn't it? Exhausting survival mode versus just resting in divine provision. Because when you're super busy trying to protect yourself all the time, you have literally zero energy left to actually represent the family business.
So this creates a really clear contrast between two different ways of living. The old way is marked by this defensive posture. You're always looking over your shoulder, constantly hoarding your resources just in case. But the new way is marked by rest. Because you carry the family name, you are granted immediate access, protection, and authority. You don't have to fight for your right to exist anymore. You rest in your identity, which completely frees you up to actually manage and manifest the values of the house you belong to.
Which perfectly sets up Section 4, the overflow of inheritance. Okay, so once that deep emotional and spiritual stability is actually achieved, what happens next? Like, what does it actually look like when a legitimate child steps up and uses their legal inheritance? The sources make a highly provocative claim right here, contrasting the passive consumer with the active manifester. The clear message is that legitimate sons and daughters are never passive consumers. A true heir doesn't just sit around on the couch enjoying the air conditioning of the father's house, right? The revelation of their identity propels them. It pushes them to become active agents of transformation in their environment.
And this is exactly what that active manifestation looks like. Our sources call this the genetic response to spiritual lineage. It's like, just as biological genetics determine your physical traits, your spiritual genetics actually demand a specific output. These works of power, healing the sick, delivering the oppressed, bearing tangible spiritual fruit, and fundamentally transforming whole cities and regions, these aren't just special tasks for some elite few. No way. They are the natural, expected responses that just flow out from knowing exactly who your father is. To really drive this home, the teachings offer this incredibly punchy, weighty insight. If your faith does not overflow into practical authority to heal the sick and transform regions, you are still trapped in the apathy of an orphan mindset. I mean, that is a massive challenge to standard Christian apathy. It suggests that powerlessness isn't a lack of trying, guys. It's a symptom of an identity crisis. If there is no practical authority flowing out of your life, the orphan virus is very likely still running in the background.
And that brings us to our final point, Section 5, empowering the collective family. It's absolutely vital to realize that this whole legal transfer isn't just a solo endeavor. Drawing from Ephesians 2, we see that we are built together into a dwelling place for the Spirit. Your restored identity, it's a building block. This newfound authority and rest aren't just for your own individual gain or your own personal peace. The family is built collectively, with Christ as the ultimate cornerstone. Every single individual who moves from orphan to heir becomes a crucial part of a unified structure that actually houses the very presence of God on earth. It's a team effort.
So we land right back on a question that really demands some personal reflection. Take a hard look at the evidence of your own life right now. Does your faith actually overflow into practical authority, or are you maybe still secretly trapped in the apathy and the survival mode of an orphan? The legal transfer of paternity has already been accomplished through the cross. That certificate of alienation is torn up. The only question remaining is whether you'll step out of the shadows and take your rightful place in the Familia Dei. What a profound thing to think about. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you all next time.